So I'm going to be busy for the next couple of weeks, so I just want to get some more videos out. I'm doing another James Bond related tier list, this time the actors, mainly because, I don't know. So they weren't on this list, but I feel like I have to talk about Barry Nelson. By default, he's kind of an F, and that's not his fault. Mainly because he didn't know what the franchise was going to be like. It was obviously a television thing, but it doesn't help that they made him Jimmy Bond, and they made him an American, so it's not his fault, but like by default, it's like he's kind of an F tier. The first official person to speak about is Sean Connery, and he's an automatic S tier. He's my favorite Bond. Obviously, I can't give him anything below an S. That said, while I highly praise the actor, I do acknowledge that he's had some very bad James Bond performances. Specifically, Diamonds Are Forever, I'd probably honestly give that a C, but he's still an S tier. And Never Say Never Again, honestly, he feels kinda like a cheap knockoff version of Bond in that one. I'd go as low as to give him, honestly, a D. But he's still he's the best in my opinion, automatic S tier. Now here's where it gets weird, because the tier list I was using, they had the unofficial ones, specifically David Niven and Peter Sellers. They were obviously referencing Casino Royale 1967, and that movie is a complete train wreck. So let's first get off to David Niven, and he's weird because he was Ian Fleming, the guy who wrote James Bond, his original pick to be the actor for James Bond. So it feels weird ranking him, knowing that Ian Fleming really saw something in him, and then watching him in this movie that is a complete train wreck. I think because of the Ian Fleming connection, I kind of have to give him a D. And it's kind of weird because he's really not James Bond in this film. He's like an older version that, if I'm correct, was married to Mata Hari. One day I'm going to review this movie because it's absolutely baffling. But like, the movie is just so bad, and I think he's kind of the bright points mainly because he's so nice and stuff. I'm going to give him a D. For some reason, they included Peter Sellers, who is in this movie, and he is not James Bond. Mainly because there's a point where David Niven's James Bond makes every MI6 agent James Bond. So because he's literally not James Bond, Peter Sellers is an F tier. And it's weird because like there's moments where like I can kind of see him being James Bond, but he literally isn't James Bond. Additionally, I'm just going to start pointing to the side over here. These actors end up playing James Bond, and they're not. They're just characters given the name James Bond. Like, there's a scene in the movie where David Niven is like, oh, every agent that comes in and helps us is James Bond. These people are not James Bond. There's a point where Moneypenny's daughter is given the title James Bond, and she's not. Like, there's nothing against the actors here. It's just they're not James Bond. Woody Allen at one point is given the title James Bond. So they have this one guy come in to become an agent, and the actor's name is Terrence Cooper, and he honestly is probably D tier. Because he out of everyone that is given this title, he is probably the most that feels like a James Bond, who could pass off as a James Bond actor. He's so good to the point where, like, in an alternate universe, I could actually see him being a James Bond in the official series. But again, it's the movie he's in. They don't really use him. They completely forget about him at one point. So he would be D tier if he was on this list. But, like, I really need to review Casino Royale 1967. But back to the official ones. Next I have Lazenby. Now, this one was kind of weird to do, mainly because he only has one film, and yeah, he's obviously wooden. But that one film is so good. And I really think he has a lot of the characteristics. If he were to continue, even down that serious path, or even if they went silly with him, he would have made a great James Bond. It's just the fact that it was his first film, and he wasn't really used to acting and stuff. I have him as a C as a result. I really wish he did more films, and I wish he wasn't such a butthole and that he was like willing to do more films, but I think he was so strong enough in that film. Granted, he is wooden, I acknowledge. I would put him as a C tier. Roger Moore is interesting. He's definitely, I don't get annoyed by his performance, nor do I think he did a really terrible job. But I really think the thing screwing him over is the comedy that they really included in his movies. And like, yeah, they've done outlandish stuff before with Sean Connery, but they kind of amped it up with Roger Moore. And I think that kind of hurts him by default. I have him as a D as a result. I think he did a great job as Bond. It's just the fact is they kind of screw up a lot of things for him, just what they wanted him to do throughout those movies. And it doesn't help that he ages not so great continuing through his performances. There are definitely moments where I can see some of that Ian Flemingness in him, but I also think they're kind of awkward. So, as much as I hate to say it, I kind of put him as a D, but I still do enjoy, his movies. Timothy Dalton is an A. I've grown to Timothy Dalton's movies, and I absolutely love the man. I wish he had that third film, which he was planned to do. That said, I think the two films that he was in, at least, they were kind of awkward because they were just trying to get used to him, and it feels like they're kind of rushing in some weird way to describe it. I think he's fantastic, and he definitely, out of the books at least, he definitely pulls off the character in the books. It's just, the fact is, he's only done 2 films, and he came after Roger Moore, who was a very lighthearted, comedic, in a way, not so serious performance of the character, and that definitely hurts him, but I really do enjoy him. So Pierce Brosnan, I have as a B, mainly because I really do enjoy his performance, but I also think he doesn't really shine through he has like a lot of room to grow in the 4 films that he did, if that makes sense. I think he's really great, but I think there are some weaknesses, at least, to his performance. He doesn't get a lot of those Ian Fleming qualities. They definitely try to be more modern with his performance, which I think works, but I think it works better with Daniel Craig. And as much as I like him, I just don't see him as an A tier or an S tier. Or a C for that matter, honestly. And Daniel Craig is an A tier Bond. My thing is, I think some of the movies, Quantum of Solace and Spectre, they give him a lot of weird things to do, and that definitely hurts him. But this guy is sharp and strong with his performance as the character. And I really do like his tenure, even though his tenure has been very baffling with the films they've given him. No Time to Die, we'll see what ends up happening, but I do like Daniel Craig as James Bond. And that's my very rushed tier list of James Bond actors. Am I right? Am I wrong? I'm probably wrong because I really rushed this video, but if you enjoyed and you want to see more, like and subscribe.